To form the Grand Canyon, you have to remove 1,000 feet off of 10,000 square miles, and it's called the Great Denudation. How did that happen?
I have no idea.
All right. What formed the funnel?
The funnel?
Yes.
I don't know. It looks like the Colorado River to me.
Okay. How do you get potholes on a 2,000-foot cliff, 330 feet, and 4 miles away from the river?
Well, I don't know exactly what that formation is, and I suspect it's not what you're saying it is, though. But I really don't know.
Why is Marble Canyon so much different than Grand Canyon?
Let's see. Looks like it's a higher elevation area. It's probably flowing down a little faster.
Actually, it's lower than the Kaibab Plateau. I mean,
Oh,
it's
right.
lower.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, that would also explain it. I guess it's a different elevation.
Okay. And how do you get barbed canyons?
How
do you get them to flow towards the north and then turn around and then flow to the south?
It looks like runoff again.
But why? I mean, the slant is going to the north, but that the river is going to the south. The land itself is slanting to the north. And when my brother-in-law was in his geology class at a state university, he said, this is one thing we could never explain. So how would you explain it?
I don't know, but I suspect it's runoff.
Okay, well, this is what runoff normally looks like. This is the Amazon. Okay, so then it drops down to 4,100 feet, and then you get to Nankowe Butte. Okay, this is 5,100 feet. How did that form?
That I don't know.
All right, and then this is that rock that we talked about, and you think that eroded up through millions of years of rock. Is that still your position?
It probably got rolled up as that formation was rubbing against the other one. Yeah,
it got rolled up there.
Probably
How long did those layers take to form?
A long time.
Millions of years, maybe?
Sure.
So how would a rock get rolled up through millions of years of rock?
Well, like I said, it's rolling through it.
Rolling through it, but you don't see the broken. You don't see the broken layers. You don't see the rock broken on the path as it rolled up. All right. And then how did Grand Canyon Cavern form? This is 63 miles long. It's 1,500 feet below the surface. How did that form through limestone?
Well, how did any cave form through limestone? There are limestone caves everywhere.
Yeah, it's because of the flood. The flood laid down the limestone, and then the waters gushed through it and carved it out. And then you get the stalactites and stalagmites forming after that. And the interesting thing about this is the largest dry canyon in the U.S. And this is huge. And then the other question is, where did all the limestone come from?
That is a good question. Because limestone doesn't form rapidly, as far as anyone knows.
Exactly. And Dr. Walt Brown, he asked Bob Dietz, he's one of the founders of plate tectonics. He coined the term seafloor spreading. And when limestone forms, it releases carbon dioxide. And there's 600,000 times more limestone on the surface than carbon dioxide in the air. And so then he asked Bob Dietz, where'd all the limestone go? And you gave the right answer. Bob Dietz says, beats the blank out of me. And yet the hydroplate theory can perfectly explain how limestone formed. And this is what I was just told. So it's going to do 1 inch every 8,000 years, roughly. So my question to you is, how do fossil nautiloids form? They're in the bottom of the red wall limestone, and there's billions of them, and they're all pretty much oriented the same direction. And some of them are standing vertical. Okay, about 15% are standing vertical. And if that formed at 1 inch per 8,000 years, how is that nautiloid going to stand vertical for 100,000 years?
Well, you don't have to form it at 1 inch per million years. You can form sections of it faster than that.
So you're saying that they could have got buried rapidly. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. We agree on that point. So that's what you're saying here, that all those layers went over the other one and sheared them off?
That's what the great unconformity kind of indicates, the great area of erosion.
Well, I would say it indicates that there was a big compression event and the basement rock buckled. And so the layers on top of that buckled. And then that compression event, they still kept going and the layers that were on top of it sheared it off. So that's another perspective. Do you think people should be able to see two perspectives or just one?
Well, if you have good evidence, you should see
Okay.
both perspectives.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, if you have good evidence, and I would say even if you make accurate predictions, I think that would be a good starting point. Are there any accurate predictions that your worldview makes or has
Basically,
made?
the whole fossil record.
So
Yeah.
what do you predict? What prediction did they make, and what turned out to be true?
I would eventually predict. Well, to go the other way with it, I would eventually predict to find a shark tooth in the Cambrian or the Precambrian, and no one ever has.
Okay. So that's one prediction that they have. Are you aware of any accurate predictions that has been made using your perspective of the past?
Well, if you look at molecular clocks and dates of transitional fossils, they seem to line up.
Well, that's not a prediction. Okay. And then you said that this Snevely Hill Formation, which is 800 feet to 1,000 feet thick, just eroded away in 70 miles. It's just not there. You think that just got eroded away?
Apparently it did, because there it is there, and there it isn't in the other spot. But
well,
there are
could
the
it be
two
that
Coconino Sandstone and Hermit Formation.
Is it possible that these were not laid down over millions of years?
Not really.
So then how did this get disappear? You just said it just happened to erode. Well, how come it didn't erode everything else?
Or maybe it didn't deposit. I mean,
well,
that's also an option.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying they're not millions of years old. Then yeah, I would say that, okay, we can agree on that one then too. How did Red Butte form? 1,000 feet of Mesozoic. What?
I don't know how Red Butte formed. I'm not really familiar with Red Butte.
And I would say this is a remnant from the Great Denudation. Again, that's 1,000 feet of sediment that got sheet eroded off of the size of Vermont. And then the hydroplate theory, I mean, these two lakes draining catastrophically logically explains how 1,000 feet over 10,000 square miles, that would be 2,000 cubic miles of sediment got raised off. I would just ask you to consider that. And there's Red Butte. He predicts that the sand from the Imperial Sand Dunes will have come from the Grand Canyon. That's his prediction. And he also predicts that the inner gorge would be a tension crack. It's going to have a V at the bottom of it. And again, do you have any predictions from your perspective of the past, a blind chance perspective of the past? Do you have any predictions based on that?
About the crack in the basement?
Any prediction? Do you have any prediction at all that we can look at and see if it's confirmed or denied in the future?
Let's see. I'm sure there are some. Mostly I have things like, why can't you find certain things in certain layers? And if you could, that would invalidate everything.
Right, but that's not a prediction. What do you predict? What do you predict to be discovered that would validate a blind chance perspective of the past?
All right, I would predict that you would find soft-bodied animals in Precambrian, and I would predict that you would find things like arthropods in the Cambrian.
Have they found that already?
And that has been found.
Okay, so that's a post-addiction. That's saying something after you found it. Is there anything that's unknown that you would say? Yeah, that you would predict based on a blind chance perspective of the past?
That eventually, well, I don't know. I gave you two examples, and they're not really exactly what you're looking for. So I don't know. I would have to think about it a little harder.
Right. And that's what the hydroplate theory does. You know, it does make predictions. It's got about 50 of them. Fred McNam has documented, he thinks that 20 of them have been confirmed. And that's the sign of a good theory, is if it makes predictions. And he said, Walt Brown says, if you don't make predictions, it's weak science, and it shows a lack of confidence in what you're teaching. Do you think that this theory of explaining the Grand Canyon should be presented for people to think about, since their theories don't work? Should this one also be theoried also be presented on the website and at the park?
I mean, I think you can look into how the Grand Canyon formed and everything and present it publicly. But when you start saying, well, it proves the Earth is 600 years old or whatever, I think that's a little bit different.
So if I hear you right, you would agree that multiple theories, including this one, should be presented at the park and on the website.
If you can present it in a way that doesn't say that doesn't totally go against other fields of science.
Well, we don't have to say how old the Earth is. We can just say two huge lakes drained to make this.
Sure, if you can prove those lakes were there and they really did that, yeah, teach it all you want.
Well, they've got theories there that they can't prove. You know,
Okay.
they got four theories that don't work because they can't prove them. Could this theory be presented alongside of them?
I mean, you can teach it at church all you want to, I guess.
So you just want one theory to be taught instead of two, even
Well,
though that theory doesn't
can-
work.
If you can get some really good evidence together for why the Earth is young and how all
This
these
has nothing to do.
geological formations-
This has nothing to do with the age of the Earth. This is
well,
just
I mean,
yeah.
the whole argument about Grand Canyon is kind of about the age of the Earth.
Well, they're claiming that it's millions of years old, and I'm saying that it's not. Okay, they've got one theory that they're teaching as dogma, so people just memorize and conform. I'm saying there should be two theories so people could think. Would you support an opportunity for people to think, or would you rather them just see one and memorize?
Well, I don't think anyone should just memorize things. I think you should go out and look for evidence yourself.
Okay, yeah. Well, to think you
same
need to see
time,
you're going
there's a
to
critical
think
line.
you're going to need to see two issues, two ways of looking at it. Could this one be
Sure.
presented? Would you want this one to be presented so people could see this perspective?
Well, like I said, if you can get some really conclusive evidence that lake
It doesn't
did
matter.
that, then
They
yeah, start teaching.
they don't have conclusive evidence for the four theories right now. This one has very compelling
Well, I can
evidence.
say that I don't have great evidence that the Grand Canyon was carved by a magic unicorn that wears the party hat all the time, but I could teach that.
But you know,
One
you
more
can't-
question, Brian.
Okay. So if I hear you right, you don't want a theory that can explain the Great Denudation. It can explain why the layers are. We can explain the funnel. It can explain why it's carved into the hard basement rock and a myriad of other features at Grand Canyon. You're opposed to that theory being presented along next to four other theories that don't work. Is that accurate?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Okay.